Hi everyone, so welcome back, and here we are with the fourth episode of the month of digital climate action with Bring Back Green Foundation, Fridays for Future India, and Greenpeace India. And today we are discussing all about the eco-gender gap. And first off, let's get our basics right. Let us understand what gender gap is. So in very layman terms, gender gap is the difference in which different genders are being treated in the society. And gender gap index is the measure of this. So globally, they usually announce the gender gap index in quantitative data, and it is actually calculated in four different categories: health, education, politics, and economy. So for instance, economically, the gender gap index would measure the difference between salaries that are earned by people belonging to different genders, or the number of leadership positions that are being represented by each gender, or the active participation from each gender in the economic sector. So goes the idea, and that is how eco-gender gap is also measured. So the eco-gender gap, it actually talks about differences and the gap that exists between different genders when it comes to dealing with things of the ecology, like caring about climate change, or how vulnerable a particular gender or genders are to climate change and effects of environmental degradation. All of this figures in this eco-gender gap. And actually, this has come into discussion in the modern era after a particular few studies in most recent times, which actually came out with this observation that it seems to be very unmanly to care about environment. And it sounds quite stupendous, I know. However, let me try to break it down for you. I think it goes back to the conditioning that we have all had when we grew up. All these cliches of women being caring and giving is also attributed to women when they care about nature. That is why it's called Mother Nature or Mother Earth, and it is supposed to be feminine to care, to be sacrificing, to be giving. And more often than not, it is actually attributed as a masculine quality to actually not care, to actually not give a damn, to actually look hard and to be more assertive in public. And actually this was used as a advertising technique by big companies which sell sustainable products. Most of the advertisements today, if you look around, is actually directed towards women consumers. And let me explain this to you in a better way. For example, if I ask you to think of one of the switches that you can do to have a sustainable lifestyle, you will be thinking of carrying a cloth bag when you go to the grocery store. And when I ask you to picture a person who's going to the grocery store to buy things in a cloth bag, you more often than not would think of a person who has feminine qualities than masculine qualities. And in a very recent study in China, they found out that most men think it is very feminine to go to a market or a store with a cloth bag instead of a plastic bag. And why is that so? Because companies, or the images that we have in our mind or that we see in advertisements, TVs, or campaigns on the streets is of women being held responsible for the switch in their lifestyle to sustainability. And this, like I said, goes back to the social conditioning that we all grew up in, including the companies, men, and all of us in the society. Well, I'm not dwelling more on that factor. Let us move on to the other points within eco-gender gap. I think statistically it is proven that gender minorities and women care more about nature, or about climate change, or about things that affect the environment and sustainability in general. And I think one of the major reasons for that is because we understand this existential dread, as for centuries we have had to be the gender which have to question ourselves, our place in society, our place in the world. Especially if you're born in the LGBTQIA plus community, there's always a time when you have an existential threat about where you belong, where you fit in, and what is your place in this world. And so when we talk about existential crisis in terms of the climate, in terms of the world coming to an end, of climate change really bringing in really bad consequences, we can actually relate to it. It is not something from the distant future. It is not a science fiction movie. It is an existential dread that we have felt in our life, and so we feel more relatable to it, more connected to it. So we take it as more than just a conspiracy theory, and we make conscious decisions to make a lifestyle that will not promote or that will not lead to this existential crisis. Another reason I think is also because through generations, women and gender minorities were oppressed for their gender, and they understand what oppression means. We've had to fight for each and every right and privilege that we enjoy today. And that means fighting for the climate or the oppression of environment is also something that is very relatable to us, and also we usually stand up for the voiceless, and there is a solidarity that is actually seen among feminist movements, among gender minority rights movements, and environmental rights movements. And then going on to another topic actually, or going on to another point rather, that stresses this eco-gender gap is actually the point of, for example, the consequences of climate change. Whom does it affect the most? We discussed this on the first day. It affects the vulnerable communities, marginalized communities, and marginalized genders. For example, the issue of stable housing. Most of the poorless people, most of the homeless people, and most of the people who are on streets without a stable housing belong to gender minorities or women. And when you do not have a stable house to live in, then the idea of the world being your house is more pronounced. And not just that, you also actually affect, or you are more vulnerable to the effects of climate change. You are the one who's first hit when you're outside on the streets with no shelter. You understand how much more hot it is this year, or how much more cold the nights have become. You are the first person to understand the effects of climate change. So it becomes a question of survival for you, the switch you make, the decisions you make, and the fact that you have to care about climate change, which gets very real for you than to a person who has a stable housing. And maybe to wrap up things, I will finally talk about so what after, say, climate change is already here, and we did not do much about it, and the crisis is already here. We are seeing it. We have had floods in Kerala for the last 3 years, and so what happens after a crisis hits us is we start reacting to it as a community. So what we do is we make these relief camps, we make these labor camps, and we come together, and it is a very dreadful situation for women and gender minorities, because here they are threatened because of their gender. Let's take this example of right now. Coronavirus is spreading around, so we are all under lockdown globally, and the instances of domestic violence, the instances of sexual harassment, the numbers have only gone up, and it is a very dangerous trend. So gender minorities and women, they would do anything to avoid a situation where they have to go to these camps where their gender can actually be a case of threat for them. And another very important point that I feel is that usually women and gender minorities do not place their trust in systems, in established structures of government or judge or judiciary or police or even science and technology, because over the years they have not really helped us much. They have only created policies to be unfair to us, and everything had to be fought for, every rightful choice that we have got today. And so when a problem occurs, maybe in their house, in their life, or in the planet, they do not look up to these systems to fix it for them. They do not wait for the government to make policies or for the judiciary to understand what the issue is. They actually take things in their own hands. They make an individualistic change. They make a lifestyle change. And this, I think, has been in the crux of more women and gender minorities standing up for women's rights, and there being an eco-gender gap that way. And of course, there is something we all can do about this. We can all make this gap a little less wider, and that is by being conscious about this eco-gender gap, by raising kids equally, by teaching kids to care about others, the planet, everything, no matter what their gender is, by making our education system talk about this eco-gender gap, by making our government and policy makers aware that this gap exists and things need to be done to not make few genders more vulnerable to climate change. So all of this can be done, and yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the concept of eco gender gap. So until we come tomorrow with a new topic, bye bye.